Recently I've been thinking a lot about the ideas of finding joy in my writing and being consistent and ambitious with my writing practice, and I've been learning that these two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. Consistency is something that I've severely lacked during the first third of the year, be it crazy work deadlines, family emergencies, or just trying to take on too much at the same time. My writing was lacking consistency, which caused a lack of momentum, which in turn removed my ability to find joy in my story. As I'm filming this, we are nearing the end of June, and it is the hottest day of the year so far. So between the approach of more energy-draining heat waves, yet another work deadline, and the never-ending toil of responsibilities which never seem to get any smaller, I feel like I need to remind myself of what's important to me. So even though it's not quite halfway through the year just yet, I wanted to sit down and go through my list of ambitions and goals for the year and evaluate what is still bringing me joy, what could be bringing me joy if I actually decide to prioritize it, and what might I need to let go of in this eternal juggling act that I always seem to be finding myself in. But I want to approach my list not with a judgmental, I'm not doing enough mindset, but rather celebrate the things that I have been doing and make a real actionable strategy to actually let me achieve what's missing by the end of the year. So with that in mind, let's jump straight into my Notion spread. Also, this is absolutely delicious, highly recommend. So this is my 2025 Notion spread, and you might remember this from the original video where I came up with some of these goals. I was so hopeful at that point. I don't necessarily think I was being unrealistic. I think a lot of these are still feasible. And I'm excited to figure out how we can make this a reality. So of course this is a writing channel, so we're going to start by looking into my writing goals. And I had two main goals, one surrounding Project Sight and one surrounding Project Voice. And I think to make some of this make sense, we are going to actually be starting with Project Voice, which is further down the list. So what I wrote down for Project Voice was finish brainstorming and outlining the book and writing the first draft of the book. And I was expecting this to take me a total of 3 months. This has not happened, and I think at this point it is not going to. The start of the year didn't go quite as planned. I was hoping to start with Project Sight at the start of the year, get to the end of Act 1 sometime around March, April, and then switch gears into Project Voice. Project Voice is a spring book. It has all of these like spring flowery vibes. It's something that I was really looking forward to writing outdoors and to writing surrounded by flowers and possibly going on a little like naturey writing retreat in a flower meadow. And I just had like all of these visions of this really cozy spring vibe situation while writing this book. And that hasn't happened. It is June and we haven't touched this book yet. And that was a very conscious decision, and I knew that if I didn't write this book in spring, it wouldn't be written this year because I want to write it in spring. So we're not doing this anymore. And really what happened was Project Sight took a little bit longer to brainstorm than I anticipated. It took a little bit longer to get into than I anticipated. And then when I started writing the first chapter, I pretty much immediately afterwards had a family emergency and ended up not touching my book for a month. And then it was April and it was peak spring and I sort of jumping into Project Voice and part of me wanted to, but I just spent so much time early in the year brainstorming Project Sight, which is my main book. It had been a long time since I touched the second book in the trilogy, and I had spent the previous year working on the first book, and I was really excited to get into it. And then I got into it and immediately stopped. So the idea of switching projects just because it was spring just wasn't feeling right. It didn't feel like something I wanted to do anymore. And it's still something I want to do, it just didn't feel right for this year and this moment. So with that in mind, technically taking this off my list frees up 3 extra months. I've probably lost more than that in the first half of the year during times that I wasn't writing. So we are basically on track, I guess. So actually looking at Project Sight, my goal was to finish the second draft of the second book, which I was anticipating to take me 8 months. Technically I started this in January, and even though I've had breaks, it's been 6 months since I've been working on this. And we haven't quite finished Act 1 yet, although I am getting close. Some of this is because life got in the way, but some of it isn't. It's also me being too slow and not consistent enough in my writing, and I think that I can do better. I think that I would like to do better, and I would still like to finish this book this year. So if it takes me 6 months per act, this isn't happening because it's a 3-act book. So we need to be able to halve the amount of time that it took to write Act 1 and apply that to Act 2 and Act 3. So something that I'd like to do to make sure that I'm being very strategic in how I spend my time and how I make this happen is actually make sure that I know how much time it takes me to write an act. And fortunately, I am a big time tracking nerd. So we're going to be looking at my time tracking statistics. Isn't that fun? So this is my writing statistics for the year so far. Actually, it looks like I was working on the first book in the series in early January, plus the fact that we're only halfway through June, so really it's only been 5 months, not 6, so that makes it a little bit better. But I'm also not actually done with Act 1 yet. I have 3 chapters left to go through. So this says I spent 70 hours on Act 1 so far. I reckon it's gonna take me maybe 5 more to finish the 3 chapters I have left. One of them is brand new, the other 2 only require minor edits. So I think 75 hours for Act 1 sounds fairly reasonable. And to make the maths a bit easier, let's just assume that this is 6 months total. So, calculator. Because of course I've got a calculator on my desk, it's not like I have one on my phone. So there's 52 weeks in a year, which means there's 26 weeks in the first 6 months of the year. So 75 by 26 is 2.9, so almost 3 hours. So with an average of 3 hours per week, I've been able to write 1 act in 6 months. So if I want to write 2 acts in 6 months, I have to do 6 hours per week, which is less than 1 hour per day. Like, that is completely feasible. I can do that. So let's just make a little note in here that I need to write for 6 hours per week to finish Act 2 and 3 in the second half of the year. That doesn't account for time to do this, but I've sort of been doing that in parallel whenever I sit down and do the brainstorming for book 2. I'm also thinking about book 3. So I think this is just sort of gonna start happening naturally as I get towards the end of this book. So I'm hoping with 6 hours per week I will be able to achieve this goal. This should happen naturally, sort of as a result of working on this. And I should probably set some time aside to work on this a bit more actively as well. And then Project Voice we are just not doing this year, which is fine. I'm happy with that. Other than that, I had a couple more writing goals down here. The first of all is read 1 craft book. I have started 2 craft books and I just can't get past the first few chapters. I don't like craft books that talk about writing as though they had the like one and only method and like this is absolute gospel and you have to write like this. It just pisses me off. So I'm trying to because my friend Malin was talking about this to me when I mentioned this, and she said that she sees it as collecting different ways of doing things, and the more craft books she reads, the better her writing gets, but she's not taking any one book as the ultimate truth. And that sounds so healthy, and it sounds so much better than what I'm doing, which is just straight up not reading craft books. So I really want to try and take that approach forwards. And I think part of the problem is that I only want to read 1 craft book, which doesn't allow for that approach. So possibly if I was reading more than 1, that would make it less jarring. I don't know. I've got a couple of recommendations, so I will be trying this again. Hopefully I won't abandon it this time. And then I also wanted to critique or beta read 3 books, which is something that I enjoy doing because I think, first of all, it's fun to read my friends' books and I like reading them. But also I think it makes my writing stronger when I very actively try and take something in, analyze it and try and find the problems and try and make it better, which I find very difficult to do with published books. even though I could do the same thing with a published book. But when I'm reading something that's published, I'm just trying to enjoy it. When I'm reading something that is my friends, then I'm paying very, very close attention because I love my friends and I want to make their stories better. No one's asked me to beta read this year, which is very rare. So hopefully someone will in the next 6 months. If I don't manage to do 3, I think that's fine. I'd like to do at least 1, but it is nice that I've been focusing more on my own projects this year, but I'd still like to do this. Now, other than writing, I am a multi-passionate person with a ton of hobbies, so we also have a list for other creativity, and I don't make goals for all of my hobbies, but I do make goals for YouTube and art stuff, mostly. And honestly, I think I've been slacking for both of these, but it's fine. So for YouTube, I bought a new camera right at the end of last year, and I set myself the goal of learning to use it. Now, I think I have been doing this a bit, but I don't think I've been doing a great job at A, learning how to use the video stuff, and B, actually using what I learn in videos. So even though I've been playing around with photography a little bit and I've been trying to take pictures using different settings, when I try and film videos, I just put in automatic because I'm scared of messing it up. I feel like the automatic mode is still better than my skill set, and I'd like that to not be the case at some point. I think the progress on this has been very slow, but I've been enjoying the little bits of time that I spend into this, and it would be nice to do a bit more of this if I can. Other than this, I said I wanted to upload 20 videos. Funnily enough, I think I'm at 10, which is kinda cool because we're halfway through the year. So that's going pretty well. And then host 20 streams. I don't actually know how many streams I've hosted off the top of my head, but we can quickly count them. 10 streams. Perfect. Almost like I have a system in place. Cool. And then the other creative category is my art, which I think has been slacking the most at the minute, but I've also been slowly picking it up again recently. So I set myself 3 goals for art. One of them was to learn to do realistic looking character art, and this is something that I'm currently taking a schoolism class on. It's not just for portraits, it's just digital painting, and I've been really enjoying it. There is a specific portrait section that I've been doing. So I've been making a little bit of progress on this, but not really as much as I was hoping to have made in 6 months. But we are working on it, so that's what matters. And then I also wanted to put this new skill into practice by redrawing my main character for Project Sight, which is Lisa. She's just here. I love her so much. I would like her to look a little bit more 3D, like have some actual fantasy, realistic-y looking, like stylized, but like, you know, not comic style, looking character art for her. And I'm very excited to make that happen, and I really want to prioritize that this year, which is going to be difficult considering I'm doubling how much writing I'm doing, but I think we can do it. And then the other goal I set was study anatomy, which I can do by hand instead of digitally. I haven't been doing this, and I'm not sure if I want to. This is definitely still something that I want to focus on at some point, but considering I only have 6 months left, I think this is something that I'm far more excited about. So I think we're just gonna make the executive decision that this is not a priority right now, and I get to focus on my digital art, which has been really fun lately. And then I'm not gonna talk about my life goals in detail because it's getting a little bit late, but they're right here on the screen if you want to see them. And as you can see, I passed my driving test, which is definitely the most exciting thing on that list. I am so proud of myself. Celebratory sip of tea. Now, before I go and run off back into my normal life and forget everything I've just said and then don't work on my goals, I want to try and implement some of these things into more of a strategy for the next 6 months. So we're gonna do that by setting a couple of quarterly goals for the next 2 quarters. So I'm just gonna duplicate this. So I don't think I'm gonna fill in the month by month section now. Also the months are wrong, but I'll fix that later. But just the actual, like, what am I accomplishing in quarter 3 and in quarter 4. And the obvious one is we're doing 1 act per quarter, right? Because that makes sense. So, Project Sight Act 2. hours per week average is what it will require for me to accomplish that. And then I also want to continue thinking about the next book, so I guess just continue thinking about the next book will do. For my other creativity, I think the main thing I want to focus on is my art, so I would like to finish my schoolism course. And then I'd also like to do at least 3 portraits. I think I'm actually going to get rid of this health and fitness table because I sort of stopped using it. I keep track of my fitness somewhere else, which makes it a bit easier to, like, if I have my weekly goals down here and then I scroll up, I can see my quarterly goals without having to go through that table and feel guilty about not having filled it in. And honestly, just looking at this, I'm not sure I need my month by month section anymore either. I think just having these quarterly goals and being able to scroll down to my weeks is a lot more valuable. So I'm just gonna get rid of this whole section as well. And then one thing I wanted to add into here was a quote from a book I'm currently reading, which is Something Productivity by Ali Abdaal. But one thing that he talked about putting in a post-it note and reminding himself of is this question, which is, what would this look like if it were fun? And I think that's a really good reminder of just, like, if there's something I don't want to do, find a way of making me want to do it rather than pushing myself to do it in a way that I'm not going to enjoy it. Because I want to do all of these things, but I want to do them in a way that brings me joy. And being consistent with it has actually been bringing me a lot of joy, which is good. But I also don't ever want to force that consistency out of me. So I think this is a good reminder. And then if we do the same thing for quarter 4, so I'll just get rid of all of this that I no longer need. And then for my writing, I want to do the 3rd act, which again is 6 hours per week. And I'd like to actually have a first draft of the outline done by the end of this quarter for the 3rd book. For my art, I want to do another 3 portraits, and then I want to actually do Lisa's portrait. And we'll fill in life goals separately because I don't want to do that right now. But we're not getting to quarter 4 for a while yet, so I don't need that right now. I'm pretty happy with that. I think that's a fairly solid plan. I think it's a realistic plan. I think 6 hours per week of writing is definitely doable, and I really want to try and actually finish my book this year, so we are going to do everything I can to prioritize it and to actually make this happen. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any goals of your own, absolutely feel free to share them with me. I would love to hear all about them and all about how you're making them a reality. Based on my goals, I am making 10 more videos this year, so if you want to find out what they are and if you want to see my journey to finish this book and finish the rest of the trilogy this year, not this year, finish this book this year, finish the rest of the trilogy probably next year, the year after. Way too ambitious there. Feel free to subscribe and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.